with us. I'm really excited about this morning and what God has for us. We're in our series called Redo, and today we get to hear a real life message of redemption and how God works in the mess. And as I was praying for you guys this morning, I was praying that that this morning would find each of you well. But then I had a little unction in my heart of saying, even if you're not found well this morning, what would I pray for you? And I was just reminded about the truth of how God meets us in the mess, right? We don't have to have everything all together for God to meet us. And I wrote down some things, just the story of God and how he continues to meet us in the mess. The whole Bible is about how God meets us in the messiness of life. And I was thinking how we met Adam and Eve in their hiding. Remember, right after they sinned, they hid behind a tree, and God met them there. I was thinking about how God met Abraham in his searching, and how God met Jonah in his fleeing. And then even in our series in Ruth, how God met Naomi and Ruth in their grieving. And then you fast forward into the New Testament, and you see Jesus meeting people in the mess. He met Thomas in his doubt. He met Zacchaeus in his loneliness. He met Peter in his shame. And he even met the disciples in their fear. I love the story when he was crucified. They didn't know he was resurrected yet, and all the disciples were huddling up into this upper room, and they had the door locked, and in their fear, Jesus doesn't allow locked doors to stop us in his meeting. He doesn't allow raging waters to keep us from him. He doesn't allow our fear and our doubts and our shame and our guilt and our frustrations and our confusions to keep us from him. He meets us in the mess. We're getting ready to sing a song, and the lyric says that the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. Isn't that good news? And it says, there is not a place where we can't find his grace. And so would you stand with me as we sing about the goodness of God meeting us in the mess? Let me pray. Father, we love you. God, we thank you that you are the God of the mountaintops, and you're God that meets us in the valleys. God, that there's no place that we can hide from your grace and from your love. We love you. We praise you. We worship you. We exalt you this morning. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
Welcome to Journey. We're going to get started worshiping. Let's sing this out. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Sing, there's nothing, oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Yes, I know it's true. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place that your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. And you're the only one who can. Sing that again. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. And you're the only one who can. He's turning graves. The only one who can. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. And you're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Sing that out. There's nothing. Come on. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. He's turning graves into gardens. Come on. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Sing it again, come on. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. And you're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can.
Let's just lift up our arms and worship him today. Let's give him praise. There is a promise that points beyond my failures, and there is a still voice to silence all my fears. Even the worst of my mistakes are miracles in the making. Yes, they're miracles in the making. By your stripes I am healed. With one touch I am made whole. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. In the storm, you are peace, and your love won't let me go. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. Oh, Jesus. In every season, your purpose is unchanging. And in every moment, you're working for my good. Jesus, the rock that never fails, your kingdom will not your stripes I am healed. With one touch I am made whole. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. In the storm, you're my peace, and your love, it won't let me go. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. You have spoken, and I know that it is so.
From the highest of mountains to the depths of the sea, from the planets in motion to the breath that we breathe, from the womb of the barren to the rich and the poor, to the dreams of the orphan. Every heartbeat is yours. Lift your voice and sing. You hold it all. You hold it all. You hold it all. You hold it all. Every tribe, every nation, and every country and king, every tongue, every language, and every song that we sing. It's in the roar, come on.
It's in the roar of the lion.
It's in the wind and the waves. It's in the glory of sunrise. It's in the lives that you change. You hold it all. You hold it all. You hold it all. You hold it all. You stand alone, come on. You stand alone in splendor, and you reign in majesty. Your hands formed all creation, and your hands are holding me. You are my hope forever, and you are the sovereign King. You are my friend and Savior, and you are my everything. You stand alone in splendor, and you reign in majesty. Your hands formed all creation, and your hands are holding me. You are my hope forever, and you are the sovereign King. You are my friend and Savior, and I believe that you hold it all. we sing, you hold it all. Yes, you hold it all. You hold it all. You hold
Never get tired of singing that truth. Never. He holds it all together. All of creation is his. I was reading today in Psalm 24 that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. You belong to him. We belong to him. The world belongs to him. Our nation belongs to him. He holds it all together. Can we give him praise for that truth this morning? You guys can be seated. We got a beautiful service still ahead of us this morning, but I got a couple of things I just want to bring to your attention. One is we just want to thank you for being here, and if you're a guest with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can jump on to journeychurchaz.info, and you can fill out a Connect card. If you came prepared to give through tithes and offering this morning, you can do that there, or you can just text 84321, any amount to that number, and you guys can give your tithes and offerings that way. We got a couple of big things coming up this next week. One is next weekend we're launching back up our Saturday night service, and so that's at 5 p.m. We are excited about that. Our volunteers, especially in kids ministry and greeting, have not been able to worship with us on the Sundays that they serve, and so we're really excited to be able to open up space. And also, we want to create more space for people that are starting to feel more comfortable coming back to worship in person. And so we want to invite you guys, some of you guys that are online that maybe are waiting for a little more space to open up, you can come on next weekend, Saturday at 5. We don't have childcare for that service yet, but as soon as the Lord convicts the mess out of you and you guys start volunteering again, we will get back to doing that as well. Also next week, we have, right after our 10:30 a.m. service, we have a Get to Know Journey. This is an opportunity, if you've been checking us out and wanting to find out more of what it looks like to do life at Journey Church, this is where you go. Right after the service, we'll be over in the students' room, and we would love to just share our heart for God, the gospel, the church, and what it means to be a part of Journey Church. So you can come and do that. You can RSVP for that, actually. Let us know you're coming at journeychurchaz.info. And then next week, we also start a brand new series called Still King. We are in a changing world, aren't we? And one of the things that I love about the gospel is it reminds us that even though things are swirling and changing around us, we worship a God that never changes. He is still king. Jesus is still on the throne. Last I checked, he still lived a life we couldn't live, died the death we deserved to die, and victoriously raised over sin, Satan, and death. And he sits at the right hand of God. And so he is still king. What does that mean for us? And so that's what we're going to be looking at next week. And we're excited to start that series and kick it off with you guys. And then also, we have Trunk or Treat coming up. Man, we know that people have been hunkered down. They've been socially distanced. They've been stuck on home and Zoom calls. And a lot of people actually aren't even going out in their neighborhoods trick-or-treating. And so we just want to provide an opportunity for our community to experience some sort of joy and celebration during this harvest time and the Halloween time and all of that. And so we're going to do a trunk or treat, and here's what we need. We need you to do two things. One, we need you to start bringing in candy. We have a table out there. You can just drop it off and purchase candy so we can give out tons of candy. And then we also need your trunks. We need you to put some junk in your trunks, all right? We need your cars. We want you to decorate. We're going to set up cars. We're going to have bounce houses. We're going to have food trucks. We're going to have games and all of that. But we need you to sign up to bring your car, decorate your trunk, and then we're going to have the community, kids, and families walk through, and we're going to give away candy and stuff, okay? So sign up for that online. All of it is found at journeychurchaz.info, and so that's it. Well, we have a very special guest with us this morning. We actually get to hear a real life story of redemption, someone who got a redo, someone who God met in the messiness of life. And so we're really excited to do that. Let's watch this video to remind us what it's all about.
Morning, everyone. I'm Carlisle, one of the pastors here. We are glad that you're here. As we already heard, we have a special guest. I'm going to introduce him in just a second. I just wanted to recap real quickly what we've been going through the last 4 weeks as we've been going through the book of Ruth. We've been learning some things about God. We've been learning things about ourselves and how all that kind of fits together. We've learned 4 things. We learned that God is always up to something good. You remember learning that? Okay, thanks, Tara. That's great. The second thing we learned is that in the midst of us doing our own thing, he's always kind to us as he brings us into the things that he's doing good. The third thing we learned from chapter 3 is that he loves it when we are faithful, when we take steps of faith toward him, when all the answers aren't given to us. And then last week, the last chapter of Ruth tells us that he loves, he has a strong desire to redeem us. So we thought that today would be a cool time to kind of recap the whole thing of a redo of things in our life that we need to get a redo from and that we can look to God for a redo. And we have a special guest who has had a few chances to do a redo. And what you may not know as I start to introduce him is the rest of the story is even more fabulous than the tragedy that you all know about. When I told people that Brendan was going to come, I would say, do you know who Brendan McDonough is? And they'd go, no. And I say, yes, you do. You know who he is. Everyone, at least in Arizona, knows who Brendan is. And so I would tell them what you already know about Brendan now is that he is the lone survivor of the hotshots that died in that tragic fire in June of 2013. 19 of his buddies, his comrades, people that he had journeyed in life with when he got a redo, and they all died. And for some reason that Brendan didn't understand, he was spared. And he struggled to understand that. So today we're going to have a chat. He and I are going to talk. I'm going to ask him some questions. He's going to tell you a little bit about the redos that he's done. So would you greet Brendan as he comes up and we have a conversation? So I have to admit that I'm just really kind of geeked out. I'm kind of like, Arizona starstruck that I get to sit next to Brendan. Plus, I got to spend time with him. He's just like a regular dude, just a regular guy. He really is. You're going to see that if you haven't already got to ever talk with him. So he came wandering, and you came wandering into our church one day, and Autumn, our administrative assistant, she calls me up. She goes, you're never going to believe who just was here, who I just got to talk to. She was really pretty excited. And she told me that it was Brendan, and I'm like, what? He stumbled into our church? And it was because he has a ministry that he's been doing for the last few years that he's going to tell us a little bit about. He was starting to network with churches. And so we reached out to each other. We've talked a few times face-to-face on the phone. And I told you that night that we heard about what happened, it really sears into our heart and our memory. Tina and I had fallen asleep. We have this bad habit of falling asleep with our television on, and we had the news on. And so it was pretty late that night, and we both got woke up out of our sleep because we heard the news, and it just freaked us out. And just like everyone else, we were grieving over that, but we immediately thought of you. And this guy that's sitting next to me now, a little starstruck thing, that he was maneuvering through something horrendous, so terrible and so hard to try to get through. I put a little thing out this week, notorious. Do you remember what notorious means? It means famous for negative reasons. So Brendan became famous for a negative reason that day. But what's so cool is that he's totally turned that around. So when we get to the end, you'll hear that. So questions for you. First question, what were those first few hours like for you? Just give us a picture of what you went through that day.
Wow. Those first few hours were just complete and utter shock. I couldn't fathom that kind of loss, and it was so chaotic because not only are we, it felt like it took hours, but it happened within minutes. But we're watching this community that's burning, and we're trying to evacuate people, and we're trying to still save homes. And then we hear this radio call that they're trapped, and then we hear the confirmation, and it's not like the fire just stopped. It's not like a car accident where the car stopped moving. This thing is still carrying on without a skip. And I just remember just breaking down in one of the buggies and just uncontrollably sobbing and just asking God, like, why couldn't it have been me earlier that day? Why am I not with them? And just those questions, because I have had so many redos in my life. I was a heroin addict before, and I'm like, these men were way better than I am today. Why didn't you just take me? Why couldn't we have done this different? And those questions continued for many years.
So you kind of went to God right away, asking him some questions, but you didn't get answers?
God was completely present, but I had so many walls up that I didn't want to hear anything. And my relationship with God at the time was like my relationship with my father. I'd met him twice, and I had forgiven him for the things that had happened. But I didn't talk to him. I didn't go to him for advice. And everyone kept telling me, like, hey, Brennan, God's not going to give you more than you can handle. But they forgot that other part of surrender. And so I just kept piling stuff on my shoulders of, like, God's going to give me the energy to do this. And I can't ask why. I can't be mad at him. How dare I question the creator of the world? And I was just lost.
The way I remember it is in that notoriety thing, you got thrust into a spotlight that none of us would have been prepared. And not only did the fire just keep going, but you had to deal with this thing, and then you were like the spokesperson. And you were national news and world news and all this stuff. What was that like for you? That you were like two things at once, the loss, the community, and then you're like a spokesperson. Because you didn't probably have training for the spokesperson thing.
It was living hell. I'd posture up and I'd put on a face and I'd sit in front of a camera and we have this interview. And if I didn't do it, the families had to do it. And if the families did it, they were going to cry and be emotional. And so I felt this responsibility to protect them and to honor my brothers. And so I just became this shell of who I was. And so I'd talk, just force down emotions, go to drinking, a few hours later, just to let it all out. And it was just this vicious cycle that went on probably like consistently for 2.5 years of just I remember my mom saying, "You're a shell of my son." And it just broke me. And I didn't comprehend what she was saying at the time, but now I see. I just had this facade, this very stoic facade, but on the inside I was just completely broken and torn up.
It's kind of like two people, huh?
It was.
The spokesperson person and the you trying to...
Got to be this hero, got to be this face. And I wanted to be that person, but I couldn't be me, and so I couldn't find... It was just polar opposites. It was... I had no identity. I wasn't a firefighter anymore. I was just a survivor. And like you said, notorious. Like I'm famous for something no one wants to have fame for. I'm known for surviving. I'm not known for coming up with the cure for cancer or something like that. I'm known for being the one who made it. And it took a toll, for sure, on my mental.
And you weren't really sure, like you already said, that you were worthy of being that survivor. You didn't know what God had in mind. I remember when we talked, you talked about... you did some speaking or something. And then there was a lady or something that really kind of punched you awake.
Yeah.
She didn't really punch him, but she said some things. Can you tell us a little bit about that thing that got your attention?
Yeah, so we're at a memorial, and they're honoring all fallen firefighters that year, but they ring a bell, and it's for the last toll, last call, and it's just something that has stuck with me. And so we go through this memorial, and my brothers, there's no other larger tragedy that year, the largest since 9/11. And so it's just very impactful, and other people who have lost a loved one are crying, and we're just all super emotional. And we're at a bar, and I do what firemen do best, right? I start drinking, and I'm like, I'm going to stuff these feelings down. And I'm a handful of drinks in, and this lady walks up, and she's been around for the incident since the beginning. She's a counselor. Her husband's a Phoenix firefighter. She goes, "Hey, Brennan, how you doing?" And I'm sitting there thinking, do I give her the answer that I've given a million times? I'm okay. I'm fine. I'll get through it. Take care. Thank you. And I gave her the truth. I said, I'm broken, and if I am going to continue to live life like this isn't going to work. Like, I'm going to end up drinking myself to death, killing myself. This is not how I intend life to be. And so she just kind of hit it to me straight. She was a counselor, and she said, well, do you want help? Like, and she knew I had a daughter at the time. She was like, isn't it important for you to be a dad? You talk about it in these interviews and you say it's so important. And she knew how to get to me. I was still 22, so I'm like really young, very hot-headed, full, a lot of testosterone. So it was like easy to like get to me and rope me into something. You could get me to like redo your whole landscaping at that age if you could piss me off enough. Like you can't move 100 tons in one day. I'm like, just watch me. And that's what she did. She said, are you even willing to put the work in? It's a lot of hard work, and I don't think you can. And I'm like, lady, like, I know your husband's a structure firefighter, but we actually, like, put on weight and don't sit on a couch. And she just kind of looked at me. And, some of it's memories I don't remember, some of it I do. And it just came to the point where she's like, if you want help and if you're going to put the work in and if you want to be a dad, this is what you need to do. And I said, if you can push that forward and you can show me, I'll put the work in. I'll show up. And, she set up a counselor meeting that next week, and it was life-changing.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know if you've all watched the movie about that incident and stuff, and I haven't talked to you about how true to life it is, how they depict you or not, but having met you and spent a little bit of time with you, that's what's still true about you, is that if you need your 100,000 tons of rock moved in a day, I'm your guy, because that's what you're doing now. I mean, the rest of the story that we're going to get to soon, I keep baiting you to get excited. It's way even more fabulous than what he went through. But I want to keep going on your kind of your redo. So you told me about like a Jesus moment, that you had this Jesus encounter. You came to Phoenix to see your daughter. Yeah. And you were going back home. And tell us about that crossroads.
Yeah. Literally, crossroads, yeah. I had split custody of my daughter, and, I was just fighting to be a father. My father wasn't there, and I wanted so badly to be the man that he never was. And so I was driving to Anthem, or halfway from Prescott to Phoenix. I almost said from here to Phoenix, but we're in Phoenix. And so I'm driving halfway, and my daughter, she takes a nap like she does in the car, and she's sleeping, and I'm just listening to music, and I'm just driving, and we pull over, and she wakes up, and I see this just like gleam on her face, and she's excited to see her mom, and she's so happy, and she can't wait to get out of this car seat. She's trying to unbuckle everything, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, man, she is so happy to get away from me. Like she can't wait to get away from me because I'm so deep down in my depression, and I'm not who I said I was going to be, And she goes with her mom, and so we start driving. I start driving back on my own, and I'm just thinking about, like, just these images start popping in my head, and I can't remember if I seen smoke from a fire or something, but I'm just triggered. I'm driving in my car. I'm very anxious, and I can't stop reliving that day and the things that had transpired since that moment. And I had enough, and so I whipped my truck over on the side of the highway and threw it in park, and I grabbed the gun out of my center console, and I put it to my head, and I'm not going to say the exact words that I said,
They're not too churchy?
Yeah, I don't think it would be something that would be good yelled. But I'm screaming, pull the trigger, and I'm trying to build the courage to squeeze this trigger because I'm done. I can't live my life like this anymore. I'm miserable. And as I'm screaming, I'm sobbing, and I'm staring out the road, and I'm just reliving all of this. And then instantly this moment comes up where I lived in this small little apartment at the time, and I could picture it. And I'm sitting on the couch, and my daughter comes out of the hallway, and she's got balloons tied to her feet, and I'm upset that she's laughing because these balloons are tied. But she starts spinning around, and she's getting caught up in the balloons. And I remember just smiling in that moment, thinking, like, at least my daughter has some joy with me. And I drop the gun, and I come to, and I'm just snot, tears, and I'm broken, and I just remember thinking, like, God, if this is it, I can't do this. Like, you've got to fix something. And I remember him sitting there, who knows, right? I just remember sitting there and him going, I'm not done. And I'm like, like, what are you not done with? I'm not done with you. And I just felt this peace, and I remember going home and thinking, something's got to give. And that's when I met Carrie. That was 4 days later in Emmitsburg, Maryland for the memorial. And, you know, it wasn't this like instant miraculous fix where I was just like, hey, I'm back. I'm not, you know, it was a journey, but it started in that moment, and that's all I needed to hear, right? Because I was that young, stubborn kid, and God knew how to reach me. He said, I'm not done. And so, okay, that must mean I'm not done either, and that you've got something, and I've got to be patient, and I've got to work hard for it.
So some of your story, your pre-story that you told me is like the Jesus part, the church part, is that you had been exposed to the gospel. You'd been exposed to Jesus. You were kind of the problem child in your youth group, if I remember right.
Yeah, a little bit.
But you had this guy that has come alongside you.
Yeah.
When did Jesus become, you know, as you're growing up, he was like, you know, this Jesus knowledge versus your Savior. What has happened since then? How did that come? How did Jesus become real to you?
He became real in that moment in my truck, and he became real again when I was going through counseling and I'm dealing with PTSD and I'm not addressing the alcohol issue. Because I figured, I'll just deal with this and the alcohol will fix itself, right? And he became real after meeting with Pastor Bob continuously, and he said, hey, I've got this recovery meeting, Bible study I'm setting up. You know, I think it'd be great for you to be there because you used to be on drugs. And he knew everyone bait and switched me, which was awesome because that's what I needed. He was like, these guys could really learn something from you. And I remember like in the first 5 minutes sitting there and everyone in the room is sober except me, and I'm still drinking. And I'm like, these guys have nothing to learn from me. And if I want to live up to what half of people say, you know, everyone's telling me, God won't give you what you can't handle, and he sure must have something special for you because you're still here. If I want to live up to that, I've got to get sober. And so I remember going home after that meeting, and I just told God on the drive back, I said, God, I couldn't do it before, and you've gotten me here today, and I can't do it today, and you'll get me to tomorrow. I don't want to drink anymore. I'm done. I don't want this in my life, and I can't do it on my own, and only you can remove this. And so here came the big test. I'm Irish. It's St. Paddy's Day like 2 days later, right? The year before, I was in Boston, downtown, Dropkick Murphys, Kilt, like raging, having a blast, just completely making a mess in that city. I'm surprised I'm even allowed back. But I'm in Prescott, and I go out to dinner with some friends, and, you know, obviously they come out, hey, do you want a beer? And I'm like, nah, I'm good. You know, and the waiter looks at me. I've been there 100 times in the last year.
So you had like a reputation.
Yep. Every bartender knew Brennan was coming, and yeah. And they come back around after the food, or hey, you want a beer? You sure you don't want something to drink? You just, you know, what's going on? I'm like, nah, I'm good. And so we get done with dinner, and my friends are going out, and they're like, hey, do you want to come with us? Let's go. Usually I was the one like leading the charge, like this is what I'm destined to do. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go home. It's a Thursday. I was like, I got stuff to do tomorrow. And they're like, you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Not a problem. I'm good. And so I go home, and I told nobody at this time because I've got this fear of failure, extreme fear of failure. And so weeks go on, and a month goes on, and I'm still sober. And I'm like, God, man, you rock. Like, you're pretty cool. And I'm starting to learn that I've got to surrender things over to him. And so I remember meeting with my pastor, and I think it was like the morning before a Bible study or the day before. And we're sitting down at a coffee shop, and we're chatting. He's like, so what's going on? What's new? You know, getting in more bar fights? I'm like, no, actually, I haven't been to a bar in, you know, such and such days. And he's like, why? Did they finally kick you out? And I'm like, no, the money's too good when I drink. But I said, I'm sober. He goes, why? I thought it was just the grief and loss. I didn't think you had a problem with it. And I'm like, oh, Bob, come on. And I just tell him, like, Bob, I just don't want it in my life, and I don't know if it's going to be in my life later, but I know in this moment right now that God is removing it, and I'm not going to go against that. And I want to keep it private. My fiance doesn't know at the time. I just want to keep it to myself and really work on me. He's like, all right, cool, I respect that. I'm like, thank you. And so we go to the Bible study the next night, and he's talking about announcements, right? He's like, hey, trunk or treat next week or whatever it is, and hey, we're going to be at the park and volleyball game. And anyways, Brennan's got 2 months sober, so go ahead and, give him a round of applause. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, old me would have just grabbed him and, smacked him around a little bit. And then I'm thinking, that's the exact accountability that God wanted me to have in that moment. And the rest was history. I continue to just believe in myself because I have a God that tells me I can, and I'm not done. And there's days when I'm tired. There's days when I'm beaten, and but it'll never be as tough as it ever was. And I think that's the beauty in what we're doing here today, just having a conversation.
Yeah, talking about. Are you hearing how many redos that he's got to redo?
There's like 12 more in there too.
Yeah,
prison,
just keeps going.
arrest, multiple. Yeah, it was. I started the fire service 3 days sober from heroin, detoxing, running 10 miles. Like it just goes on. And
I'm
on.
laughing at the scene in the movie.
Yeah, that was pretty true.
But that's still all you, even that stuff, that tenacity that you have. So let's jump forward then, because I keep saying the rest of the story, and that's what I love about what's going on with you, is that God hasn't stopped, and you're open to that. So there's 2 verses that are my life verses that I'm sorry I'm superimposing them onto you, but I just see that going on. When I was in junior high, I don't think I was the problem that you are. I was a problem, but not
like
as much as you. Yeah. And our junior high leader, she gave me a verse, Joshua 1:9, which has been my Old Testament life verse, and it says, "Have I not commanded you?" So I always think it's a command, Carlisle. Do not be terrified, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So I always think about, I have to do what God asked me to do. I have to have bold proactivity. I have to step into things that I don't fully have the whole picture of. And then Romans 8:28, I leave the results to God. All things work together for good for those that love God and are called according to his purpose. So those are my 2 life verses. I see that happening in your life back then. I see all those different redos that you had, because you had opportunities to not take God up on his offer to do a redo all along the way. We do every day. All of us do every day. So this whole bold proactivity, I see that in you for sure, in what you're doing now. And then Romans 8:28, where he takes these things, not just the notorious thing that happened to Brendan, but these things that he brought into his life and that situations brought into his life. And God's using that now in a pretty significant way. So tell them what they might not know about what you do now, because you don't fight fires anymore. Well, at least you fight spiritual fires.
Yep, yeah. Underwear model. I'm just kidding.
We left that part out when we talked.
Yeah. No, God, he transformed my life. I was broken. I had no ounce of hope. I had never felt so alone, even before I got hired in the fire service. And he had completely transformed my life, and he was undeniably working miracles every day. And I remember the book came out and the movie came out, and I'm sober, and I've got like 7 or 8 months. And I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? I can't, the fire service, like I've served my time there, and I think I've lived that childhood dream. Do you want me to go back to school? What is it? And I remember just praying, and I've been praying on that for years of like, what do you want me to do? And he sat there one night, and he just told me, he said, I want you to open a treatment center. I'm thinking to myself, like, the old school telephone lines. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was connected for someone else, not me, because I'm a knuckle-dragging hotshot with no education, no business experience. Like, I'm good for moving rock and dirt and lighting stuff on fire. And I kept praying on it, and then the next day I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? Make it clear. And he said, you see an issue, and I've given you a platform, and we've got this really direct relationship. Do not waste it. Do not waste it. Do not let it go. Do not let it sit by. You're not meant to sit behind a desk. You're not meant to, find some new trade. You're not meant to be back in the fire service. You're meant to go share what I've given you and go take that to others. And so from that moment that hit me, we opened a treatment center within 9 months. I mean, I knew nothing about business plan writing. I knew nothing about the levels of care, anything. I was completely clueless. All I had was what God had walked me through. And we opened in 9 months. We've been open for 2.5 years. We serve men from all over the country. We work with first responders. We work with veterans. We work with civilians. We work with agnostics. We work with atheists. I mean, we've had people come in with Pantera shirts that are like, what's this Jesus stuff? And I'm like, just kick it and sit around and find out. And they keep asking, like, when am I going to have this moment? When am I going to have this moment? And about a month in, they come in and they knock on the door because we've got an open door policy, right? And I see it on their face, and I'm just like giddy inside, but I'm trying to be calm. I'm like, here it comes. Like, this is what I've been fighting for. And they come to me, Brendan, you got a minute? And I say, yeah, of course. Come on, come sit down. And so they sit down, and they said, man, it hit me. And I said, what hit you, man? Did you, in the gym, you guys playing dodgeball or what? He's like, no, dude, the Bible, man. I was sitting there, and I've been praying 3 times a day like you asked me to. God showed me your will, and he finally showed me his will and that purpose. And I'm like holding back the tears, and I'm like, really? How did that happen? And so those are the moments that I live for, is what God's done in my life. I had this fame, this notoriety, right? And I couldn't get it figured out. It took me 4 years to find sobriety after my brothers had died. Don't let me fool you. It wasn't like a few weeks after. I went out and I caused chaos and wreckage that only God could heal. And so now, today, I get to pay that forward and work with men in recovery. And coming this fall, we're opening a women's facility as well, because God has opened the doors. And I've learned that if he opens a door, either jump in or get kicked in. And I got a strong back, but I don't like to get kicked that hard. So
Especially by God.
Yeah. That's what God's blessed me with. He's blessed me with a beautiful family, an opportunity to be here today and just to share and just to be vulnerable and say, it's okay. We're broken people, and that's where God works the best, right? When a piece of pottery, when you drop it, there's more cracks to be healed than there is that are still there, right? So you see God just weaving in our life this beautiful message.
When we got to have lunch together a couple of months ago, I guess it was in July, we were talking about the anniversary and all that stuff in between there. And I remember he told me where to meet him, and so I showed up right on time, because I'm pretty on-time person. Now, some of you are saying, oh, really? Most of the time I'm on time. and Brendan texted me and said, I'm sorry I'm going to be late. Get started without me. I'm doing some debriefing, or like the last appointment he had with 2 people that were at his treatment center. And which I thought, that's the rest of the story, is that he's going to be late because he's helping people that their lives have been changed. And then he came because has that fear of failure thing that he talked about, and he was all kind of sheepish and timid because he was late. And so he insisted on buying me lunch, a penalty lunch. That's what I called it. Is this a penalty lunch? Because you're trying to make up. I said, I would have sat here for 2 hours waiting for you, knowing that that's what you were doing, because that's the coolest thing about the rest of his story and how God's got a hold of his life, is that he is changing lives because God changed his life. And that's a tremendous story. And that's the heart that this man's always had, that God just got hold of, that a series of redos, and now he's interacting with people that might take 3 weeks. They knock on the door, whatever it is. And there might even be people that don't, that refuse it, but they can still get their life changed in other ways. That could be a step toward what God has for them. So it's a phenomenal story that all these redos, tragedy, notoriety, national platform, and then God says, you have a platform, dude, trust me with it, and you can change some things. So one last question on all that. What else would you want to say to us out here? So this whole redo thing in Ruth, a fabulous story of trusting God when you don't have all the answers, even in the face of terrible, terrible things in our life, trusting God with the outcome when we can't see it. So if someone's sitting in here today and they're struggling with trusting God because of this bad thing that they did or this bad thing that was done to them or whatever, they're hesitating to step out in faith, or to take God up on the encounter that he designed for them like he did for you, what would you say to us about our hesitation?
I think kind of one of the best analogies I can think of is sitting in a dentist chair, right? You're getting your teeth drilled on. It's painful. It hurts. At not one moment in time are you going to grab that drill out of his hand, right? At not one point in time when I'm getting my tattoos, I'm going to say, hey, let me grab that. Let me finish this up, right? No, I'll take my own blood, right? We have to surrender to God. He's all-knowing. He's almighty. He's all-powerful. The things that come in our life might not be at the time we want, might not be the exact way, but it's exactly what he has intended for us. And it's a lot easier for me to fall asleep in the dental chair knowing the dentist has a degree, right? We're talking about our Father. He's got our best intentions. So if you're sitting there kind of on the fence, it's surrendering. Give it all to him. I remember I tried to carry the weight of the world, right? I thought I had everything on my shoulders. And I slowly but surely just started pulling things off. And I said, I am not the ox. Jesus Christ is. He walks with me, besides me, behind me. And most of the times, because I'm so broken, he carries me. And that's okay. And that took a lot to realize. But that's what I know to be true is when I'm in surrender, I don't have to have the answers. I don't want to have the answers anymore. It's not for me. It's not my job. That's who our Father is. He has those answers. We just have to be patient, surrender, and look back on moments. It's always so important to look back on the miracles that he's provided in our life because it's just proven times, right? We get to look back and we say, hey, when during the COVID, I didn't know if I had a job or not. He came through. I have a home. I have a roof over my head. I get to work. So why am I not going to trust him now today? A little bit of fear because the world tells us not to, because we have to be in control. I don't want control. I know where that gets me. Jails, institutions, death. I don't want that. I have freedom today because I give everything to him. Doesn't mean I don't work. Doesn't mean I don't think. But it means that in everything I do, I'm guided. Do I want pepperoni on my pizza? No. Got to watch my cholesterol. Whatever it is, bring them into your life, those simple decisions, because when it comes down to the tough ones, you're going to have that proven answer, and that's so important. And I just want to say thank you for those that are here. Journey Church for having me. I was sitting here earlier. I haven't been in a church since COVID. So being able to sit here and watch the worship, it was like, I was just enamored. I was like, man, I feel like this is for me. And it was. It was for all of us individually today. And that's just what's cool about God, right? Like it's 1,000 in a room, whatever it may be, he's speaking directly to us. Through you, through me, through anyone. And we all have that opportunity. We just got to step up and surrender.
It's almost like a preacher.
Hey,
watch out. Well, we're glad that you're here. I'm enamored with you. I got a little of a man crush on you. I admit it.
Yeah. I got the restraining
telling
order
everyone.
filed after this.
But part of the reason is because you trust God and you submitted yourself to him, and that just I just can't get over that. I can't get over what God's doing, what he did, what he allowed to happen to you, but how the rest of the story is so fantastic and continues to be fantastic. So you've impacted me, and
Likewise.
I'm not in a treatment center, but I'm in this treatment center. So we hope that that's what's happened for all of us here today and those of you online. We have one of our elders, a couple elders are going to come up, and we're going to pray for you and your wife, Allie, and your kids and the stuff that you guys are involved in. So is Joel, is he here?
Right there.
All right, here we go. So Joel's going to pray for him, and then we'll let you all go.
Thank you. Brendan, thanks for coming today.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question before I pray for you. Did you really have the nickname Donut?
Yeah, I do. It's tattooed right here, actually. So,
Nice.
yeah.
You got to watch the movie if
And
you
is that
haven't.
from Eric, or did you have that before? Or somebody else?
No, that was through the fire service, yeah. They, good old, I won't say it. Yeah, name calling. And then finally it stuck with Donut. I was like, I'll take that. It was, 2011 was the year my life changed, Daughter was born, got hired at the fire service. Yeah.
Cool.
Donut, bronut, it's all the same.
All right. Well, wasn't that great this morning? We really appreciate you sharing your
Yeah.
story and just your vulnerability, transparency with us.
Thank you, brother.
Let's pray. We're just going to thank God for you. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning. We thank you for Brendan's life, God. We thank you for the way that you reached down in his moment of desperation and saved him, God. We thank you that you do have a plan for him. And God, as he spoke, your word came to mind from 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, where you say, my grace is sufficient. And that, God, your strength is made manifest in our weakness. And that's exactly what you're doing through this man. And God, as strong as he could be on his own, it's nothing compared to the strength that he knows he has found in you. And we thank you for that, God. Would you continue to protect him as he speaks, as he leads his recovery home, his treatment facility, God, as he leads his family with his wife, Allie, and his kids. God, would you continue to just surround them, God? Would you give him protection? Keep him sober-minded, God. Keep him dependent upon you and your strength every day, all the time. And God, would you just bless them, continue to guide him, prosper his business, continue to help him to be able to just assist others, God, who need you. They need sobriety, but more than that, God, they need Christ. And would you use what you've given him to bring Christ to many? We thank you for him today. Be with him. And God, would you continue to remind us that your strength is made perfect in our weaknesses. Would you help us to be as vulnerable as he has been today and allow our weakness to show so that when we do, God, your strength, your power is made known. Be with us today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, brother.
Before you go, a couple of quick things. So Brendan's wife, Allie, is here in the valley. They're at a staycation place this morning, but his wife's coming in. We're actually going to be recording a session with him and his wife about how they do their marriage. And then we're going to make that available. Yeah, I think he's more nervous for that. So be watching for that. We'll make that available to us as a church after we get edited and make sure that she doesn't say anything too bad about the guy I have a man crush on. So I get editing rights on that. But so that's coming up next. And so you can see that in a few weeks. We wanted to let you know, though, that if something happened as you hear Brendan's story today, that we have those connection cards online for a reason. They're for you to communicate with us so that we can communicate with you about what's going on in your life. So if something grabbed you or something you want to praise God for, that you remember the redo that God gave you, that you took him up on, let us know about those. Fill out those cards. And then we'll see you next week at 5 o'clock on Saturday night. We start a new series about Still King, or Sunday morning. Thanks for being here today. Let's give Brendan another hand and be blessed as you go.